The fierce competition from all of the applications has made it harder to get into some schools, but I want you to know that that does not mean that there's not a place for you. There's competition, but there are so many thousands of colleges that you can find something that works for you. And the first step is through the admissions office. And every college has an admissions office. They have admissions officers, people who work there who look at those applications, and they are going to decide who gets into their college and who doesn't. So the first thing you want to do is find out what you need to do to make sure they choose you. So what really matters most in college admissions? Here are some of the things. Grades. Does anyone know what else a college might be looking for admissions? What do you think colleges are looking for?
Good attitude.
Definitely good attitude. What else?
The GPA.
That's right, a GPA. And that could vary. You know, some schools want the top GPA. They want their students to have 4.5 and higher, you know, but some colleges are okay with a medium GPA. And I want you all to know that just because your grades are not the highest does not mean that you can't go to college. There are different kinds of colleges for all kinds of people. GPA is one of the things that they're looking for. Another thing they're looking for are SAT and ACT scores. And I know that especially with COVID, some of the schools have, you know, kind of waived their SAT and ACT requirements. But just because they say you don't need it now, that just means they will concentrate even more on your grades and other things. But the vast majority of colleges are still interested in your SAT and ACT scores. Have any of you taken the SAT or ACT?
Yes.
What did you think?
I think
Was it hard? Was it easy?
it was easy.
Oh, good. All right. So that means that the easier you think it is, probably the better you'll do. And remember, there's no pass or fail with the SAT.
$450. Then you should have the $450 on hand. In your other breakout section, I'm sure you learned about savings. Your savings account and your emergency account, that money should be your emergency money. Credit cards shouldn't be used as emergencies. So when you get that situation and you swipe your card, you should be able to pay it off in full. And then that way your credit card utilization rate will be below 10%. Now, people do have emergencies. So if you do have an emergency with that credit card, I recommend, and in our example, we're using Walmart. I would recommend you actually call Walmart and break down a schedule or plan with them so that it does not affect your payment history and it doesn't affect your utilization rate. A lot of times people don't call, always call. They have a customer service there for a reason. And they will work with you, they'll help you. And then that way you can still protect your credit report even though you're going through an emergency situation. Does that make sense? I know that one's confusing. I see a hand. I can't hear the question.
Got a question? Oh, no.
She just saying good, she got it, but no question.
Okay, good, thanks. So the next one is derogatory marks. So this is the next highest impact on your score, and not only on your score, but on your access to these resources that we talked about in the beginning. So the most common example that you guys will run into is when you go to college, let's say you have 2 other roommates, right? So it's 3 of you. So it's 3 people to 1 apartment. And you sign 1 lease. So all 3 of your names are on this 1 apartment lease. The rent is $1,500, so you each pay $500. 6 months down the road, the landlord comes on the door. Your roommate has not been paying their $500 portion, and now the landlord is evicting all 3 of you. Okay? That eviction, the landlord could take that and put it on all 3 of your credit reports. Will that tremendously hurt your credit score? But when you go to another apartment and try to get another apartment, they're going to see that mark of an eviction and a balance. And they're not going to want to lease an apartment to you because they're going to feel like you may not pay your rent to them. So you have to protect your name as you start to grow up. You know, we're going to put our name on things, our social security numbers on things, and you have to be able to protect whatever you're putting your name on. I see a question before I continue. So ask your question.
So you said they will all get evicted. How come if the other two paid the rent?
Can you repeat her question?
She was saying, you mentioned if they're roommates, then they're sharing and one person didn't pay their portion of the rent, why would everyone else be evicted?
Correct. So this goes into my second half of protecting your name. So when you go into that situation, that's one lease you're signing, that's one contract. The rent is $1,500. The landlord, which is why they put all three of your names on that contract, only care about getting their $1,500 total. They don't care how they get it or which one of you does or does not pay. So because it's one contract, one lease, all three of you are responsible for that one contract and that one lease. So before you get roommates in that type of situation, you need to either A, talk to the landlord and say, hey, can we have individual leases and individual contracts for our portion? Some companies, some apartment companies on college campuses do that. And they might be shocked like, okay, yeah, they won't do it initially, but some of them do. And then that way you'll have your contract for $500 a month. Each person will have their $500 a month contract. And if somebody breaks their contract, what the apartment will do is they'll come in and lock that person's door. They'll evict them and then lock their door. So then now you two are just acting as a 2-bedroom instead of a 3-bedroom. So that's the best case scenario option.
Take home pay, it is the amount of income that comes strictly from your check. So there would be taxes, there could be fees that are going to come out of this amount, but your base pay is going to be $962 if you are annually earning $25,000. So we take a look at this. The bill is due on the 1st. And I put in here when it's due because it is very important that you always pay your expenses prior to or on the due date. It's always better to do it a couple days before, because if it doesn't post on time or something happens, you don't want that company to show you making any late payments to ensure that your credit history remains intact. But if it's due on the 1st, then you have to pay it prior to the 1st based on when you get paid your income, when your income comes in. So the beginning of your whole budget is your income. Then we take a look at all the other items that you actually have. So not everybody is going to have all of these particular expenses. You can even change some of these expenses because maybe you don't have credit cards. Good thing, stay away from them. You may not have a need for insurance, especially right now. You don't have insurance. Or if you are one of the fortunate ones that seek out as many scholarships and keep your grades up so that you have scholarships to go through college, you may not have any of these loans that are outstanding. So you don't have to fill anything in here, but you want to take what you do make and then allocate it out for each pay period. So let's just say, again, your car note or transportation expenses are due on the 1st. So every 1st of the month, you go and buy whatever your transportation needs are. So in this case, we're going to say that you have a car loan of $250. All right. So on the 28th, because that's your pay period before the 1st, you need to allocate that $250 so that your car note is paid on time. Then you go down to your cell phone bill. Now your cell phone bill is due on the 10th. Again, your next pay period is not until the 11th. So you need to pay that cell phone bill this pay period. So we're gonna put that in there. Now, if you have credit cards, again, closed, that's after you've paid all of your required bills, which would then be groceries. So how much are you gonna spend on groceries this week? I'm gonna say $100. Personal care, we're gonna put that after the fact. Comcast is doing the 15th, so you don't have to pay that this pay period. You can move that to the one of the 11th, because that's before the 15th. You don't have to pay that on the 28th. Then you have Netflix. Netflix, $15. We're gonna pay that now because the 11th is gonna be too late. And then you have JEA, which is due on the 22nd. Again, we're gonna pay that next pay because the 22nd is, the 11th is before the 22nd, but the 25th is gonna be too late. So we wanna make sure that you are allocating what you have to pay over multiple pay periods and spreading it out so that you're always paying your expenses